She cried in her sleep. Not softly, not with subtle tears, but with the ache of someone who had lost something too heavy to carry. I was lying right beside her when it happened. The room was dark, silent, peaceful even, until I heard her whisper, "Ethan, please come back. My name is Daniel." I remember that exact moment because the ceiling fan above us was spinning slowly, and I could hear the faint hum of the streetlight buzzing outside our window. It was the kind of night you think you'll forget, until you don't. At first, I thought I misheard her. I leaned in closer, just to be sure. But she whispered it again, "Ethan," this time like a prayer. Her voice cracked, and a single tear slipped down her cheek. I didn't move. I didn't wake her. I just froze. We'd been married for nearly 4 years. 4 good years, or so I thought. The kind of years that people envy on Instagram: weekend coffee runs, dog walks at sunset, quiet dinners where we laughed over silly things. Sure, we had our fights, but nothing explosive. Nothing big enough to plant another man's name in her dreams. I tried to shrug it off that night. Told myself it must have been a dream, a forgotten memory. People dream about weird things all the time, right? But something changed in me after that. Suddenly, the way she held her phone too tightly, the way she smiled at messages but wouldn't share them, the way she seemed absent, even when she was right in front of me, it all started to pile up. The next morning, she made eggs and toast like always, humming under her breath like nothing had happened. She kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted orange juice. I stared at her across the kitchen table, wondering how long she'd been dreaming about a man who wasn't me. I didn't ask her about it. Maybe I should've. But how do you confront someone about something they said while asleep? We'd met 6 years ago. She was working as a freelance illustrator, painting these stunning, emotional portraits that looked like they came from another world. I was running a small bookstore downtown, living off caffeine and ambition. Our first date was messy and awkward. She spilled coffee on my favorite shirt, and I made a joke about destiny needing a better sense of humor. But that night, when I dropped her off at her apartment, she turned and said, "I feel like I've known you in another life." I remember the way her eyes sparkled when she said it. Back then, I thought it meant we were soulmates. Now, I wonder if I was just a placeholder. Days turned into weeks after that night she cried. I started watching her more closely, listening between the lines of every conversation. She was still kind, still warm, but something was missing. That fire, that unmistakable spark that made me fall in love with her, it had dimmed. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. A name flashed on the screen, just that. No last name. Just the single initial. My heart stopped. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because deep down, I already knew. I thought about all the nights we'd spent wrapped around each other, all the birthdays, the road trips, the promises. I thought about how love wasn't supposed to feel like this, like suspicion, like silence, like I was slowly becoming a stranger in my own home. Still, I told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was a cousin, an old friend. Maybe the "E" didn't mean Ethan. Maybe her dream was just a leftover memory from a life before me. But that night, as I lay next to her again, she cried in her sleep. And once again, she whispered, "Ethan, please don't leave this time." This time, I didn't freeze. I sat up, turned on the bedside lamp, and looked at the woman I thought I knew. I couldn't tell if I was more heartbroken, or afraid of the truth I was about to uncover. She made French toast the next morning. The smell filled the kitchen before I even stepped out of the bedroom. Cinnamon, syrup, and the kind of silence that sticks to your skin. I stood in the hallway, watching her move. She was humming something soft, swaying slightly while flipping the toast like everything was fine. Like she hadn't whispered another man's name in her sleep twice in 1 week. When she turned and saw me, her face lit up. "Morning, sleepyhead," she smiled, walking over and planting a kiss on my cheek. "You were out cold last night." I smiled back. Lied with my lips. Yeah, guess I was. Inside, I was splitting in half. I kept playing memories in my mind like a scratched vinyl, moments we'd shared, touches that once felt real. I remembered the way she used to look at me, like I was the only man who'd ever mattered. That gaze was gone now, and I was the only one who noticed. Her name is Emily. We met when neither of us was looking for love. I was rebuilding after a painful breakup. She had just lost her father. We found each other in grief's quiet shadow, and that's what made it powerful. It wasn't passion. It was understanding. But maybe that grief made her run to me before she was truly ready to let go of her past. I never asked much about her ex. I figured, why stir up ghosts? All I knew was his name, Ethan, and that they were together for nearly 5 years. I assumed she left because it wasn't working. She never cried when she spoke of him, never got that far-off stare some people get when remembering someone they once loved. Until now. Until her dreams gave her away. Later that afternoon, I walked past our shared studio space. She had returned to freelance illustrating full-time. The door was slightly ajar. I peeked in, and what I saw knocked the breath out of me. She was sketching. Not just anything, him. A tall, lean figure with sharp cheekbones and a familiar half-smile. She had drawn him in charcoal, eyes shaded with longing, lines soft and careful. Her hand moved over the paper like it knew him by memory, not by photo. I should have turned away. Should have respected her space. But I knocked, and she jumped like I'd caught her stealing something. "Babe, hey," she said too quickly. "Didn't hear you there." I nodded toward the drawing. "Who's that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She paused. Just for a second. But it was long enough. "No one," she said, flipping the paper over, then laughing nervously. "Just a practice sketch. Nothing serious." I nodded again. But my heart didn't. That night, we sat across from each other at dinner. We talked about the weather. About a movie we wanted to watch. About anything except what we were both too afraid to say. I looked at her as she laughed at a joke I made, not the way she used to laugh. Not from the belly, not with sparkle. It was polite. It was distant. I missed her even while she was right in front of me. The hardest part wasn't that she had loved someone else. It was that maybe, she still did. And the worst part? I didn't know if I was ready to lose her, or if I already had. Emily hadn't drawn anything for days. Her sketch pad lay untouched on the desk, the charcoal pencils scattered like forgotten intentions. She claimed she was busy with other things, that the client work was overwhelming. But I knew better. Something inside her had shut down. Or maybe it had finally opened, just not for me. That night, while brushing her teeth, she left her phone on the nightstand. It buzzed once. A message preview flashed. Just one name, Ethan. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering so loud I barely heard her humming in the bathroom. The message disappeared before I could read it. When she walked back into the room, I pretended to be asleep. She climbed into bed, turned her back to me. Minutes later, I heard it again. Not a whisper this time, a sob. She was crying. Quietly, but not silently. And just like before, his name escaped her lips. Ethan. My name hadn't been on her lips in weeks. The next day, I told myself I wouldn't bring it up. I told myself to be patient. To wait. To give her the space she clearly needed. But space started to feel like suffocation. So I made a decision. I reached out to her best friend, Leah. We hadn't talked in months, not since the engagement party, but I figured if anyone knew what was going on, it would be her. She was quiet on the phone at first. Hesitant. I don't want to betray her trust, she said. I get that, I said. But I'm living with a ghost. If you know something, anything, please. I just want the truth. There was a pause. Then a sigh. Ethan reached out about a month ago, she finally said. They hadn't talked in years, but when Emily's mother got sick, she broke down. He was the only person she could talk to who knew her family the way he did. So they've been talking regularly? I asked, my throat dry. Not at first. But yeah, lately, more than you'd think. I think she's confused, Daniel. Torn. That word, torn, stuck in my chest like a blade. And you didn't think I deserved to know? I asked, anger rising despite myself. I didn't want to hurt you, Leah said. I thought she'd tell you. I thought she was strong enough to face it. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. That night, Emily made dinner. Stir-fried rice, her favorite comfort food. She sat across from me and smiled like everything was normal. You've been quiet lately, she said. Is something wrong? I set my fork down slowly. Yeah, I said. Something's been wrong for a while, hasn't it? Her smile faltered. What are you talking about? Ethan, I said plainly. The name dropped like a bomb. Her eyes widened. For the first time in weeks, I saw her panic. Does it matter? I cut in. You've been crying in your sleep. Whispering his name. Sketching his face like he's still part of your life. You've been here, but not really here. She looked down. Said nothing. Are you in love with him, Emily? I asked. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Then nodded. Slowly. I don't know, she whispered. I thought I was past it. I really did. But when Mom got sick, when Ethan called, it all came rushing back. It's not about love. It's about pieces of me that never healed. And what about me? I asked. What do I do with the pieces you've given me? Tears filled her eyes. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said, standing up. And now we're both bleeding. The fight didn't end that night. It only paused, like a storm retreating behind thick clouds, waiting for the right moment to strike again. For 3 days, Emily barely spoke to me. She moved around the house like a shadow, present but unreachable. Her sketchpad returned to her hands, but she kept it tightly closed when I entered the room. I didn't ask what she was drawing. I didn't want to know. Some things hurt more when confirmed. Then one evening, she said she needed air. "I'm just going out for a walk." "Clear my head," she mumbled, tying her hair back. Her voice was distant. Robotic. I nodded, pretending not to notice the makeup she'd reapplied or the quiet buzz of her phone as she glanced at it just before leaving. She didn't take her coat. Didn't say when she'd be back. Didn't kiss my forehead like she used to. I waited. An hour passed. Then two. I stared at the front door like it owed me an explanation. At 11:08 p.m., I called her. No answer. At 11:25, I texted, "Are you okay?" Read. No reply. Midnight came. Still nothing. I paced the living room in circles, trying to silence the storm building in my chest. Was she with him? Was she doing the one thing I had feared most? I told myself I trusted her. But trust is a fragile thing, it doesn't bend, it snaps. At 12:47 a.m., the lock turned. The door creaked open. She stepped inside, looking exhausted, but not the kind of tired that comes from walking. The kind that comes from choosing. I didn't move from the couch. "Where were you?" I asked, voice low. She hesitated, closed the door behind her. Took off her shoes slowly. "I went for coffee," she said. "With Ethan." It wasn't the lie that broke me, it was the truth. My chest tightened. And? She looked up at me, and in her eyes, there was something missing. "I needed to talk to someone who remembers me before all of this," she said quietly. "Before the ring. Before the house. Before us." I stood, heart pounding. "What did you talk about?" She swallowed hard. "Everything. Not a yes. Not a no. Just silence." That night, I slept on the couch. She didn't cry. She didn't whisper his name. She didn't say anything. And somehow, that hurt more than all the rest. For the next few days, we barely spoke. The air between us had grown cold, silent and heavy like snow before a blizzard. Emily spent most of her time in the bedroom, curtains drawn, sketchbook always close. I stopped asking what she was drawing. I stopped waiting for her to turn around. One evening, while folding laundry in the living room, her sketchpad slid from the couch and hit the floor. Pages fluttered open. Before I could stop myself, I looked. It wasn't Ethan. It wasn't even a man. It was a baby. Over and over, faces of a small child, sketched in different expressions. Some smiling. Some crying. A few, sleeping in cribs. And in the corner of one page, the name, Hope, was written in cursive. Faint. As if afraid to exist. My breath caught. I flipped further, notes, half-written journal entries. Words like loss, what if, never told him, can't bear it appeared between messy lines. I heard the door creak behind me. She had seen. Her face paled. "You weren't supposed to see that." I stared at her. "Who is Hope?" She closed her eyes for a long moment. Then she whispered, "Ours." She was ours. Time stopped. I felt the earth tilt beneath me. You were pregnant? I asked, stepping forward, voice shaking. You were pregnant, and you didn't tell me? She wrapped her arms around herself. I found out before we got engaged. I was scared, Daniel. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure we were ready. And you lost her? I asked, barely managing the words. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I had a miscarriage, at 8 weeks. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my mom. I thought I could just bury it. Pretend it never happened. But she's there, in my mind, every night. In my dreams. She's the one I cry for. I stepped back, the floor beneath me suddenly unfamiliar. All this time, I said slowly, I thought you were dreaming about Ethan. That you whispered his name in your sleep. But it wasn't him, it was her. Emily collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. I couldn't tell you. I didn't want to taint our future with the pain of what we lost. My heart twisted with guilt and confusion. So the distance between us, it wasn't just about Ethan. It was grief. She looked up. He was the only one who knew. About the pregnancy. About what I went through. That's why I called him. Not because I love him, but because I was drowning. And I couldn't pull you down with me. The room spun. Everything I thought I knew about our brokenness shifted. I had been angry. Jealous. Suspicious. But beneath it all, she had been grieving alone. I sat beside her slowly. You should have told me. I know, she whispered. But I didn't know how. We sat in silence. Her head eventually resting on my shoulder. I thought I had reached the edge of heartbreak. But the truth had a way of cutting deeper than betrayal. The following night, Emily didn't sleep. And neither did I. We sat together in the living room, the soft yellow glow of the table lamp washing everything in warm shadows. Between us sat a silence we didn't know how to cross. Until she broke it. I named her Hope, Emily whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't waver. Because that's what she gave me when I needed something to hold on to. I swallowed hard. And when she was gone, you lost that hope. She nodded, wrapping her arms around her knees, curling into herself. I thought if I just moved forward, married you, built our life, I could forget the pain. But it stayed. And it grew heavier. I reached for her hand. She flinched at first, then let me take it. Why did you cry her name in your sleep? Because in my dreams, she's real. She laughs. She runs. She calls me mommy. And then she disappears. A tear slipped down her cheek. I wake up empty every time. Something inside me cracked. All the anger. All the jealousy. All the sleepless nights wondering if she still loved Ethan, it all burned away under the weight of her truth. I should have been there for you, I said. You were carrying her alone, and then carrying the loss too. I didn't know how to ask for help, she whispered. I didn't know how to bring that grief into the life we were building. We sat in the stillness of shared sorrow. And then, she pulled something from behind the couch cushion. A small, crumpled envelope. I wrote this for her, she said. A few weeks after I lost her. I never showed it to anyone. She handed it to me. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a note, written in soft, shaky ink. Dear Hope, I never held you. I never rocked you to sleep. But I loved you. More than I knew a heart could stretch. I'll carry you in every smile I fake, every tear I hide, every quiet moment I wish I could rewind. If love alone could have saved you, you would have lived forever. I couldn't breathe. I looked at Emily, and in that moment, I didn't see a woman who had lied. I saw a mother in mourning. A wife drowning in unspoken pain. A human being trying desperately to survive. I took her in my arms. For the first time in months, she didn't pull away. Later that night, we walked out to the backyard. The stars were out, clear, brilliant, countless. She lit a small candle and placed it in a jar. To Hope, she whispered. Our little girl who never got to be. We stood in silence as the flame flickered against the night. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. Not yet. But it was a beginning. Some wounds don't heal with time. They heal when they're seen. The morning after the candlelight for Hope, Emily and I sat together on the porch as the sun rose. Her head rested lightly on my shoulder, her fingers intertwined with mine. The air was soft, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like we weren't hiding from anything. I want to go visit her, she said quietly. I nodded. Where? There's no grave, she said. But I used to go to the lake when I was pregnant. I'd talk to her there. So we went. The lake shimmered beneath the morning sky, trees lining the edge like silent witnesses. Emily stepped barefoot to the water's edge and crouched. She pulled a tiny folded paper from her pocket and gently set it afloat. It was another letter. One I didn't need to read to understand. She was saying goodbye. Not to forget Hope. Not to erase her. But to let go of the guilt. And to let us begin again. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically get better. There were still difficult conversations. Still moments where the silence between us felt too loud. But the difference now was, we faced them together. We stopped avoiding the past. We stopped letting it control our present. She talked more about Ethan, not with longing, but with honesty. He was her first love. He had been kind, and flawed, and real. And when he left her pregnant, confused, and afraid, she had felt abandoned in every way. And when I had come into her life, I had become her anchor. But an anchor can't keep a boat afloat if the storm inside is raging. I still am, I whispered. And I would be.